Okay, I'm going to read chapter 4 in my book Song of Mornius. Pardon the cricket noises. I came back from the store. I just bought a fresh load of crickets, so you're going to get to hear crickets. I wasn't going to read after chapter 3, but then I looked at chapter 4 and I'm like, well, I like this chapter. I want to share this one. Anyway, I don't know, I don't know. I guess I'll go with how people respond. If it seems people want to keep reading, I guess I'll keep posting. So, but I don't know how much of that I will do, but for right now, here's chapter 4. Galen Laval hiked the rutted path between the farms toward Meredith, the icy mud crunching beneath his boots. A ribbon of mist draped the valley from mountain to mountain. As he climbed the final slope, the thread dispersed, frayed by the morning sun. Rooftops rose before him. Peaked like mountains, they jutted to the sky, their translucent shingles catching the dawn's white glare. Squinting hard against the sun, Galen studied the village. Meredith was small compared to Kitterin, but living. Its 5 unpaved streets linked to one central market, like spokes to the hub of a wheel. A chill wind buffeted Galen, slapped his blue cloak hard against his deer-hide leggings. Cresting the hill, Galen caught at the wool and pressed it to his shoulder. He paused for breath, soaking in the autumn sun. Great snarl-toothed mountains loomed to his right and left, towered high behind the hills at his back, yet to the east the valley sloped downward. Through the trees beyond Meredith he spotted fields heavy with snow, acres that in late summer would be filled with crops. He hugged the cloak to his chest, glancing down at the thick, warm fabric. How many times have I wished for such a cloak, he thought, scowling, to have decent clothing. Old resentment kindled within his chest. Clenching his staff, Galen started at a sliding trot down the icy slope. Laughter rang from the village, blocking for a moment the steady rhythm of his boots, crunching snow. Halfway down the grade he stopped again, this time to stare at buildings now level with his head, at the green-gold pennants above the shuttered windows. Somehow the town lived in peace despite the war, while Kitterin... He grimaced at the foul taste in his mouth, the memory of Kitterin's death. Ashes still clung to his scalp, gray flecks from the fire which had devoured the capital city. As many times as he had tried to wash, he still found traces in his hair. It was as if Kitterin wanted him to never forget. The path widened as it reached the town, the mud going soft with the dung of goats and cattle. Galen jerked to a stop along the outskirts. Despite recent snow, Meredith reeked of humanity. The stale, raw sewage of a nearby drop house, the refuge ditch uncovered by dogs. His eyes burned from the yeasty stench of the brewery, stung to the point of tears. People swarmed the streets. Together they pushed a mob of homespuns and furs toward the market's yawning gates. He shook his head at their joy. They knew nothing about Kitterin or Chelsea, the city butchered first. Galen turned away. The smell he couldn't avoid, but this ignorance he would. His destination stood tall and majestic beyond the town. Like a brooding father, the elven temple glowered at Meredith, its long face a pattern of shadow and light. As he walked, Galen studied the curve of its dome above its white walls. The peaked crystalline roof behind it reflected the mountains, the calm, endless passing of clouds. He ducked between buildings, skulking, thief-like, toward the temple behind them. The town's perimeter was studded with rocks, strewn with rusted plows and farm equipment, broken kegs, and a collapsed wagon. Bracing his weight on Mornius, Galen sprang over timbers rotting beneath the snow, his blue cloak, dragging at his feet, snagged on an upright nail. With a grimace he jerked it free, then flipped it over his shoulder. Shivering, Galen ascended the temple's icy steps. He He reached the threshold and slipped inside, gently closing the colored glass doors behind him. The corridor was empty, its vaulted ceiling several arm lengths above his head. He heard a soft tinkling, the sound of wood chimes in the wind. The air was scented like sweet wood burning, or chamara flowers, or fresh-baked cinnamon apple. Galen smiled as his muscles relaxed. He stepped forward, hesitated, then plopped to the floor to remove his boots. All around him the chiming whispered, like voices chanting in reverent tones. The smell in the air changed to rain on autumn leaves. He rose and started down the hallway, padding quietly. The temple welcomed him, drawing him inward, touching the sore places in his heart. With every breath he drew in healing and comfort, felt embraced by the temple's music and smells. A hand, clasping his wrist, turned him sharply toward an opened doorway. On instinct, Galen heaved backward, clawing at the one holding him, the seeker elf, standing near. With a look of concern, the elf reached past his flailing arm. Galen froze as he felt quick, light fingers brushing his cheek. He searched the elf's eyes, the gray-green depths filled with kindness and pity. With a slow nod, he accepted his capture. "Good," said the elf. "Come." Assisted by his guide, Galen stepped through the doorway into a circular, candle-lit room. The chamber was small, its floor a mosaic depicting trees. Dressed in ivory or blue robes, 16 elves sat behind a ring of white candles. Alone, he entered their circle. "How do you speak?" a sharp voice demanded. It came from a shriveled old elf seated in a place of honor, on a pillow as ornate as a throne. "Thelusian, yes, but what of Elven? For 900 years your race has existed on our world, breathing the air we do. In all that time have you learned our language?" The elder rose stiffly with a sigh of ivory robes. He held out his hands, stroked the air with his long fingers. "No?" "Then tell me this, young survivor of Earth. The staff Mornius is dear to us. How did it come to you?" Galen, swallowing, met the elf's crinkled gaze. "My true father gave it to my mother before my birth." "You stand among us with Halram's staff. Are you not afraid we will claim it? We know its power, while you do not. This power is a threat to all we hold dear." A pressure touched Galen's cheek, probing his deepest bruises. He shivered as sweat trickled down his spine. "A friend told me to come here and told me to trust you. He said you'd help me." The caress wandered down his neck to the bandaged wounds beneath his shirt. Galen trembled at the warmth against his skin, the slow removal of his pain. He stared into the elf's glistening eyes, saw the way his old lips twisted at the corners when he spoke. "Your friend speaks boldly to so judge what we will do," said the elf. "Yet now in your heart I perceive your name, Galen Laval, and indeed Halram marks you. You are his chosen, his eyes and ears to this world. Yet you deny him to follow this friend you speak of, this human Tarek Florin." Galen blinked at the elf. "Tarek saved me when I wanted to die. For that I'll follow him anywhere." The elf's brow furrowed, his gaze fixed on the floor. "Anywhere?" he whispered. Galen nodded as the elder looked up. "We hear your thoughts, staff wielder. The pain of your body is naught compared to the hurts in your soul. I may ease your bruises and bones, but I cannot succor your spirit. Such labor requires preparation even for me." "I ask that you stay with us," the old elf said. "Let us ward you as we do our magic, the currents between fire, water, and air, soil and stone, and the flesh of giants. We shall heal you as we do the trees. Let us aid you, Galen Laval." Galen looked to the faces before him, the elves arranged in a loose circle behind the candles. Grief and loss ached in his throat, his yearning for people who cared. "That's what we want," he said softly. "The god Melian has destroyed Kitterin and Chelsea, your two sister cities. We hope to turn his army from Meredith to stop it before it reaches Tirdan, but we need your help. There aren't many of us left. Every battle kills more of our men. We need a weapon. I'm here to ask if Mornius can kill." A hush filled the chamber as the elder lowered himself onto his pillow. Galen shifted from foot to foot while the elves' piercing gazes tracked his every move. Glittering green, their eyes probed and measured. "Tarek Florin is important to you." This time a younger elf stood, the lines of his body long and lean beneath light blue robes. Silver hair swept forward to frame his face. The elder nodded from his pillow. "Yes, these are your leader's desires we hear. His words you repeat so dutifully. Tarek Florin wants this weapon. What is it you seek, staff wielder?" Galen looked from face to unreadable face. He saw the green of the forest in their eyes, burning, dying. "No one has ever asked me what I—" He shook his head helplessly, pounded his right fist against his thigh. "I want to help," he managed. "To try. Mornius has already healed many, but never enough." Ivory robes flared as the eldest stood once more. "I am Terov, Master Seeker," he said, raising his arms. "I salute Halram, Warder of Light, he who lies dormant in your staff." The elven ring came to their feet and bowed, then together dropped to one knee. Galen trembled. "No," he said. "Please, don't." Terov paused. Slowly he lowered his arms. "Halram helped Warder Sephron breathe new life into our dying son. Though he is not of our magic, he is greatly revered here. As his priest, we will honor you as well." "I should be punished, not honored. Galen faltered as he met the elf's stare. He lifted his staff. "Please, Master Seeker, I care nothing about warders or this Halram you speak of. I just need to know, is Mornius a weapon? Can it destroy as well as heal?" Terov nodded. "Mornius carries power within its skystone, the essence of the warder who was banished into it long ago. The warder you care nothing about. To your people he might seem as a god, but in truth he is mortal, a creature with purpose as we are. His task it is to gather light and potential for life. He is a creator of sons, Galen Laval, but he has fallen." "Sons?" Galen clenched his hands to hide their trembling. "Yes, and you," Terov continued, "influence him. While Halram is drowsing, your thoughts wield his staff. But know this, young human, Halram's need for rest is ending. Once he rouses, he will claim his staff. To maintain your influence, you will need to accept his authority when it comes, and let him wield you." Galen stared at the wavering light on the opposite wall, at the tall-ling shadows of the elves. "So I can fight. Mornius can be a weapon. Tarek was right." Again the younger elf stood, followed by the others. "Until Halram reunites with his power, Mornius is yours," he said. "You are its voice. You direct its song. But hear Terov's words. He asks you to remain here. Halram rouses, and the Dark Warder Melian knows this. To stop Halram, he will seek to slay you. If he finds you before Halram awakens fully, we will lose our last hope." Galen shook his head. "You don't understand. My mother was killed defending me. I want that to count for something. I can't do that hiding here." He stopped as Terov lifted his hands. "Our way is of peace," said the elf. "We commit ourselves to our magic, to preserving the circle which holds it here. We cannot join you in this fight or help you with our power. Like Halram, Melian came with you from your world. Now he's trapped beneath our sky, a threat to everything we cherish. Only you and Holram can stop him." "I understand." Galen bowed before the elf. "But I know nothing about this Holram." "Then stay," Terov said. "Let us instruct you." Galen straightened slowly. "There's a mind in my staff, something that senses what I'm feeling and responds to me. All my life it's been there, comforting me so I wouldn't feel alone, but it couldn't protect me. It never had the strength." "You call it a warder, a thing like a god, but if that's true, it would have helped me, saved me." "No," he shook his head. "This presence in Mornius, I believe it's my father's spirit, my father who was killed. Somehow he stays with me." Again Terov nodded. "I see the man you become knows the truth, while the child you are fears to admit it. Do what you will, Galen," Terov added gently. "In your way you speak truly. Holram is a father to your people, just as Sephram is father to us all." Galen, shivering, watched the younger elf move between the candles toward him. "Come." Lean fingers touched his arm. "I will lead you." Air chilled his face as they left the tiny room. The chimes were silent, undisturbed by the winter wind. Even the scents were cleared from the air. Galen walked miserably beside his guide. "I guess I failed." "Failed?" The elf's brows lifted, green eyes narrowed below his silvery hair. "How so?" Galen stared at him. "Why do you care? I don't even know your name." "Would my name make a difference?" The young elf smiled. "We are brothers, you and I, brothers of flesh, seekers in our way. Our spirits are one." Galen pondered this in silence as his escort brought him to the colored glass doors. "Can't I know?" "I will give my name if you answer my questions for me." The elf, turning, placed himself between Galen and the doors of bonded glass. The chimes renewed their song, softly at first, a sweet, random music. A smile tugged at Galen's lips. He felt his heart slow in his chest while he bent to pull on his boots. The thought of enduring the crowded streets terrified him, but the music stilled his fear. The scents soothed him with the smell of red berries and fresh-picked clover. "Why must you walk with Tarek Florin?" asked the elf. "Are you not tired of violence? I look upon you and see scars. I see the child Terov observed. Your mind has walls I cannot penetrate. This fortress keeps you safe, Galen, but it will not let you grow. Who is this Tarek you rely on? How is it that you trust him?" Galen stared at the floor. With his heel he traced an imaginary circle. "You don't understand," he said. "I wanted to die, to be punished for committing murder. I ran through the streets of Kitterin confessing my crime, yet no one heard me until Tarek. He stopped in the rain and he heard me. He took me under his care." Galen jerked up his head. "I know what violence looks like, elf. Tarek's not like that." "Peace, Galen Laval. Your eyes express what words cannot." The elf chuckled. "As to my name, I am Everov, the youngest of my order. Terov Mithin is my father." Galen nodded. "Thank you. I was afraid to come here. I'm not good at being around people." Everov smiled and cracked open the doors. Light. His eyes glowed as he gazed up at the winter sun, filling the darkness with hope. "Go in peace, Galen Laval. May you find faith in the powers near you." Galen ventured across the polished white stone. He turned for a glimpse of Everov's gentle face, but the elf was gone, lost behind a ray of sunlight and fragile glass doors.